my Managing and Monitoring Student Growth Through Writing project. It is a project that I worked on throughout my entire time student teaching. And basically, I had 3 assignments that I followed students through time and to track their growth. A little bit about the instructional context. I was placed in a 9th grade World History 1 class. I taught 1 course of honors and 3 courses of regular World History 1. Montgomery County Public Schools is a full inclusion school system. However, I had very few students with IEPs, and those who did have IEPs, they were a few accommodations that I had a student special needs or special education aide help me with, and we were able to meet those accommodations on all levels. Most students were above average to average performing achievement levels. A little bit about the writing assignments. When I decided what writing assignment I was going to use to evaluate students, I really looked at the content of what we were going to be studying. We were in early ancient civilizations, and so I decided that the best way to get students to write about the historical context that we were studying was through a journal entry. And for 3 of the civilizations we studied, I had them basically write a journal entry as if they were a person living in that ancient civilization. Although all 3 writing assignments covered several NCSS themes, the overlapping theme throughout the entire writing project was individual development and identity. This was really important to their writing in the journal entry. They had to be able to determine how different factors, including their social status, religion, government systems, how these all impacted their daily lives. Like I said, we used 3 different civilizations. World History 1.3 was Egypt. World History 1.4, we did ancient China. And World History 1.5, I did ancient Greece. And my main learning goal was for students to use their historical knowledge to write a journal entry as if they were a member of an ancient civilization to strengthen their reasoning through writing skills. So for the first assignment, like I said, was on ancient Egypt. I was almost pretty open with the instructions. I had students imagine that they were an Egyptian farmer for the day, and before they went to bed that night, they had to write about their day. What did they see? What did they hear? What items did they use to perform their everyday tasks? And what were their responsibilities for the day? Basically, when I assigned this assignment, I gave it to them, told them to read the directions and follow the directions to the best of their abilities. I provided very little scaffolding and support for this assignment. So, student A. I chose him because he was a very high achieving student. He, in my mind, was a very brilliant student. He was always asking questions about my lecture, always offering input during discussion. However, his writing was very limited and far below the level that his peers were writing. His main issue was mostly grammar and spelling. We did also have jumping between verb tenses and very limited sentence structure. It was not writing developed to the extent of his peers. And this is the first assignment. As you can see, I had corrected a few of his spelling, and down here I wrote about make sure you pay attention to your grammar, spelling. These squares represent where he jumped from past to present tense. And then also I wrote some comments about trying to get more evidence of what we've learned into his writing. Student B, I chose her because she was one of our lowest achieving students in the class, and it was mostly because of her inability to turn in homework and classwork. And I did get her to turn in all 3 of these assignments on time, and I decided to work with her because of her she wrote with run-on sentences often. We see a couple more grammar issues. This is verb tense jumping again. But as you can see, from this bracket to this bracket is 1 sentence, and then again here, and that was her entire paragraph. So what I chose with her is to work with run-on sentences. And this is an example of her first writing assignment. Moving on to the second assignment. After the first writing assignment, I did a mini presentation where students got to hold a prompt and explain what their day in the life of an Egyptian was. And used that kind of as a discussion of what kinds of things, okay, what is a farmer working on? I also had other prompts, pharaoh, merchant. And so I hoped that this would help them understand what kinds of things I was looking for. For the second writing assignment, we worked on ancient China. We had 4 dynasties that we studied. And so I had students choose to live in one of the 4 dynasties, and I gave them a prompt that was a little more detailed. Tell me what your daily life was like, keeping in mind the achievements and events during the dynasty that you studied. And then think about your role based on your gender and position in society. So this was more of a pointed instruction, trying to give more scaffolding and more clear prompt. I also gave them a pre-write. We did a small chart where they had to list the 4 dynasties and their achievements or important events during the dynasties, and they used that with their writing. When I gave this assignment, I did read aloud the directions. I pointed to the rubric. I didn't go over the rubric, but I did point to it and tell them to look at it as they were writing. Again, student A, we still had many issues. All of these circles here are spelling errors. And this is his grading rubric. Where he did stay with past tense, which was an improvement from the first writing assignment. But I still wanted a little bit more detail, but where he lost most of his points was on spelling and grammar. The way I graded this, they received 4 points if there was 1 to 2 mistakes, 3 points, 2 to 3, and so on. And unfortunately, he had several mistakes. For student B, she improved. She only had 1 run-on in her entire writing. And there were a couple grammatical errors, but she did very well overall. And I was very impressed and believed that I would not need to do any one-on-one instruction with her. All of the scaffolding and instruction that I gave the class would be sufficient to help her in her next writing assignment. Before I went on to the third and final writing assignment with student A, I decided to have a mini one-on-one meeting with student A, and we talked about the different issues and why he had lost so many points on the second writing. And we talked about his options for getting someone to read over it, looking at grammatical errors, using a dictionary when he's worried about spelling, those sorts of things that would help him in his next assignment. So for the third assignment, we were studying Greece, and I had them imagine they were in the city-state of Athens or Sparta, and before they went to bed that night, they had to write about their day. They made specific connections to what we have learned about in your chosen city-state in terms of government, society, and values. Tell me if you are male or female, your social class, and rights and responsibilities within the society. Now, again, I used a pre-write for this. They completed a frame routine where they compared Athens and Sparta based on the societal values, government, the type of social structure, key citizens, and any other important information. And I told them specifically, use this while you're writing your prompt. Again, more direct instruction on this writing assignment. I gave them the assignment, let them work on it in class. If they had any questions, they could help me come up and I could help them. And they also took it home that night for homework as well. And we also went over the rubric extensively. I talked about how I would be giving the points out, what the different expectations were. And so basically, I gave them the highest level of scaffolding on this third writing assignment. Student A, he did much better. He had very few spelling mistakes, a couple grammar mistakes, but overall I was very pleased. Now, as you can see, he typed it up. He decided to type it up. This was not something that I told him to do, but he did take the initiative to go find a technology that was going to help him with his grammar and spelling. So based on that, he did much better. He had only a few grammatical errors, and I was very pleased with his end product. However, I do feel like as far as the written word, he's still going to need to have some more instruction to help him get to that level of 9th grade writing, the level of his peers. And student B, I was very proud of her. She did not have any run-ons in this writing assignment. We did have a couple small grammatical errors, but overall she did very well. And so I was very pleased, and she really, I think, she really enjoyed writing, and I think that part of her achievement level in the class to that point was because the assignments that we were giving for homework or classwork she either felt was hard or she didn't like. But I think she really had a knack for creative writing. She was very detailed in what she was telling me and how she was feeling as if she was a person living in that ancient civilization. So a couple of reflections on this project. I really found the importance of pre-writes. Students, especially at that age, really need to be able to see it in a visual form in order to apply it. And when I did with the second writing assignment and the third one on China and Greece, I had them do pre-writes, just organizing the information that we've talked about in class, and the level of improvement as a class for including structured evidence in their writing was much increased from the first. Very clear instructions. I consistently became more and more clear about what exactly I was looking for in my instructions, and it was very clear that the quality of the writing was much better based on more clear instructions. Rubrics, the students really, at least by the third writing assignment, really did understand what I was looking for when we were doing the writing assignments. If I were to use these prompts again, I would probably model a quality response. Like I said, after the first assignment, we did a little mini presentation and we kind of discussed as a class certain things that would have been good to include in the writing. But I feel like they were able to see a quality response, maybe of one of their peers with the name taken off. I could show sentence structure, grammar, spelling, instead of just talking about it and pointing out certain mistakes that students had made across the board.